And welcome to your go-to Detroit Pistons podcast, the Pistons Pulse, co-hosted by me, Bryce Simon of Motor City Hoops, a former D1 hooper and current teacher, husband, and father of three amazing kids.
And I'm Omari Sankofa the second, Pistons beat writer for the Detroit Free Press.
And of course, we're always blessed to be joined by our producer, Wes Davenport. If you are not listening to Wes and Blake Silverman on the Pin Down over on the Detroit Bad Boys YouTube channel, you absolutely should be. Obviously, you should be reading and subscribe to everything Omari Sankofa II is doing on the Detroit Free Press. And since we got a preseason game, I'm back creating content on the Motor City Hoops Substack for free, guys. Free subscription over there. I'll have game notes after every game at the very least. I will do some video breakdowns when I get a chance. I also have heard from some other people that may provide some content as well. So that is a free subscription on the Motor City Hoops Substack. My guy Harry says, get it, what up, doe, in the mo. Make sure you're listening to Order of the Blazing Horse with him as well. They do a great job over there. O2, first and foremost, this is episode 199. Now, on Apple, it will say it's episode 200, but that counts the 2-minute, 45-second, trailer or whatever. So we don't count that. Episode 199, which means next week when we record, we will be episode 200. I know we've been talking about it a little bit, but man, a long road here, a fun road to get here, but it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, 200 is such a big number. And yeah, we've been doing this for a few years now. So, I don't know if we're going to do anything fun next week. I know we talked about getting Sean on, so hopefully we can make that happen. But it's been fun, man. I'm glad episode 200 is talking about, or we'll be talking about a good Pistons team. It won't be doom and gloom. I think the vibes will be pretty good. So maybe we could do something fun. We'll see.
Yeah, I guess my request from the viewers, the listeners, maybe hit us with a DM or whatever. Let us know your favorite memory or moment or, something you like about the podcast or something like that. Like any feedback or whatever that we could share on the pod and reminisce a little bit. My thing is we're at 202. Let's just go for 1,000, right? Like we're at 200. We might as well just keep this thing going to 1,000 and just get it there. So Ty Cobb's Bat says, what up, gang?
What's up, Ty Cobb's Bat?
So the other thing I have to ask, are you beat writers going to start doing your job and traveling so the head coach of your basketball team doesn't have to call you out? Like, good for JB. Like, I wanted to be there. So like, JB, look at my video breakdown or look at my notes. I watched your game. I know what's going on. No, for those that don't know, sound like JB led off his press conference after practice yesterday, giving you beat writers a little bit of a crap for not traveling to Memphis for the preseason game.
Yeah, no, I don't travel for preseason. Sorry, JB. I'm still locked in. I'm still watching the games. We're still talking about it on the pod, and I will be there in Chicago on October 22nd, I think, when the season tips off. So couldn't make it to Memphis. I love Memphis too. Like I would never miss Memphis willingly on my own accord. Like that's my city. So yeah, but I don't think I've ever traveled for a preseason game. So
you should have went back at him and said, why did you guys schedule 3 road preseason games to start, the schedule? So
exactly. That's a good question right there.
No, I know, and our listeners, viewers know that you would have gone to Memphis if that was kind of part of the, I don't know, part of the plan for you and the Free Press and all of that. But we did get basketball 0-2, which is the most important thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to break down that game here for a little while. We'll talk through that as much as, the content presents itself. And then we will also start looking at lineups because I think now that we got a preseason game, we saw the guys on the floor and a little bit of how they'd be utilized. And we can tag that with how media day conversations went. We can have some of those conversations and feel decent about it. Maybe I know we did this one year. I don't know if it was the stats prediction or the lineups. And then not Simone Fontecchio, who ended up on the roster. They made some addition. It wouldn't have been Fontecchio. That doesn't make any sense because he was a deadline addition. I'll go back and look, but somebody was added after we did all those things and kind of disrupted it. So,
Bojan Bogdanovic, I think.
Bojan, that's what it was. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, let's get into this. Let's start the mile high view, the whatever 1,000-foot view, whatever you want to call it. Just your general takeaways from preseason game 1 at Memphis.
Yeah, a little bit of a creaky start.
Yeah.
It's the first basketball year, playing since May, so not super surprising. But once they kicked in, like they really kicked in. What they won, I think, 128-112. Trailed by 21 in the second quarter, and Cade. I know we talk about him. He had a good game. The siren run kind of got him going. And like I read about it today actually, so check it out on the free press. But overall, I just feel like that was a win that just kind of affirmed the identity that they had last season. Right, we're going to run, we're going to defend, we're going to be physical, like all that stuff. And like you're playing a Grizzlies team without Ja and Jaren, and obviously it's preseason, so you can't like read super deeply
And
into
Zach
it.
Edey and
Zach
Brandon Clark.
Edey, you know,
I mean, I'm not trying to squash what the Pistons did, but it's just like it's the Memphis thing, right? Like guys are
yeah,
hurt at the start of the year.
yeah. So the main thing with that game is just they look like the Detroit Pistons. They have a very recognizable style of play. They know what they need to lean into to win games. And essentially they just picked up where they left off from last season. You had like 16 minutes of rest, and then they were off. And like that's what you want to see. You just want to see basically a well-oiled machine. And once they got things going, that's what they looked like.
Yeah, I thought overall it was positive once it got going. Like you said, the first line of my notes on the Substack, offensive flow is a little lacking here in the first few minutes of the game. This is a little bit expected for the first preseason game. So I think that was, staying positive. I think we saw some players that looked very good. I think you are right. Like we saw kind of the identity, maybe positive and a bunch of turnovers from this team. But, we saw them defensively. We saw them get out in transition. And I think once they figured it out a little bit, we saw some really positive things from individual players. So I want to stay on the positive side of things right now. I'm going to go a little bit out of order of what Wes had here, but I do think we need to just go ahead and start with Cade Cunningham O2. A lot of times we bury the Cade Cunningham conversation behind how did Asar look and how did J.I. look and, this and that and whatever. Let's just lean into the face of the franchise and a guy that I thought was fully in his bag in this game. I thought Cade Cunningham, he scored at all three levels. He had the step back three. He had a transition post up. He had the patented baseline spin. He had the highlight lob finish, which I know is a highlight play, but I think really speaks to the body control athleticism that Cade Cunningham has. He finished that with his left. So what were your thoughts on the play of Cade Cunningham?
Yeah, I mean, what he finishes with, 20 points on 8 for 11 shooting. He had a few assists. And like you said, he was in his bag. I think every bucket he got in that first half, and he only played the first half, 19 minutes. I think every bucket he got was like different. Like there was a step back three, he had the pull up mid range jumper.
I think he had a catch and shoot three, like an off the ball, just like true catch and shoot 3-point make.
He did, and then the lob from Tobias that he caught with his right, and then kind of had to hook under the rim and finish with his left, which was as Harry Burrow says, number one highlight on NBA TV. He got asked about that yesterday, and he said it was the best lob pass I had ever gotten. So I had to make sure I scored it. A little bit of sarcasm there.
I was gonna say we all know if it was a good lob pass that would have ended a little differently. Here's what I learned early in my college playing career: the best lob plays come from the worst lob passes. If that makes sense. Like sometimes it's some unreal dunk. In this case, it's an unreal just general finish where he's having to reverse. So if you see a highlight lob finish, it's probably because the pass actually wasn't very good.
Yeah, honestly, like I feel like the best alley oops tend to be from the bad passes for sure. You want to see a guy catch the ball like almost outside the range. You don't want to see like a picture perfect oop, and it's just like there's no pizzazz to it. I mean, so long story short, yeah, Cade played very well. Shut down in the second half once he showed once again that he's Cade, and obviously doesn't have a whole lot to prove. So I'll be curious to see the substitution patterns for the rest of preseason if he continues to just do first halves, if he's playing well, or what they do there. But beyond that, like no super unique or like pressing thoughts. Cade went out there and did what he had to do, got the team going, and that's exactly what you wanted to see. But specifically, I thought that step back three looked good too, and he doesn't take a lot of step back threes, so I'm curious to see if that's something that he can lean on a bit more this season.
YouTube user says, I'm so glad we have actual basketball to discuss. I agree, and nobody feels better about it than myself and O2. Listen, we like the offseason. It's a little bit of a downtime, but it's just so much easier to talk about actual play on the court, or even what we're going to do a little bit later, which is real lineup conversations that we may be seeing. I just think we saw a floater. You mentioned like we saw him scoring in a multitude of ways. So we saw a dribble 3-pointer, I think one off the catch. We saw a true mid-range pull-up. We saw a floater. We saw the baseline spin. We saw the lob in transition. It was just really, really good to see from Cade Cunningham. I also just like that they used him a little bit more off the ball. Not a lot. Listen, I don't want to get aggregated here and be like, Bryce Simon says that they should play Cade Cunningham off the ball and he's not a point guard. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that it seemed like they used him some off the ball actions, which I like, because that takes the little bit of pressure off him to get open. They can get him open, running him off a couple screens or letting him run in transition and then get a kick, and he can either shoot it or attack the closeout. So even if it's 5% more, maybe 10% more max playing off the ball O2, I like that, because I think he's such a well-rounded player. I think that can make him even more effective.
Yeah, I mean, Cade's one of the top players in usage rate every season. It's very few players who pound the ball as much as he does, and like, you want the ball in his hands. That's not an issue, but yeah, like you said, like 10%. If there's just a play here or there, you could, take the ball out of his hands. We have J.I. going downhill, or you put the ball in the SAR's hands, or Sass, whoever it may be, just to make the defense think a little bit more, just to buy Cade a possession here or there, get him a couple easy buckets, because there are probably there can't be too many guys in the league who have tougher shot diets than Cade. Like, even last night, like, he's scoring, some really difficult buckets with the, baseline spin and everything. So, yeah, that's what you want to see. That's what you want to see.
I just want to leave on these two things. One, I love the transition post up. It wasn't fruitful in this game, but I love him doing that. Like, he running out in transition, getting ahead of the break, and then posting up a lot of times a smaller defender. And then also, I thought he showed his two-way impact. I think it was in the second quarter when the Pistons really made their kind of comeback and got themselves back into the game before blowing it open themselves. But I thought he showed, like, something we always talk about is Cade on the defensive end. All right. Who's the next guy you want to talk? Who's the next guy that stood out in a very positive way for you? Because I will say, O2, there was a few guys I'm not negative on, but I was like, that wasn't as good as what I wanted to see. But I want to stay positive here to start. And why is your answer, as James says, Dennis Jenkins, who looks like NBA material? Why is your answer Dennis Jenkins to my question here? No, I'm just I think
Dennis look good. Yeah.
I love Dennis, man. Like, yeah. I'm getting into some like crazy takes places on Dennis Jenkins as an NBA player. But who would you like to go to after Cade here?
Yeah, let's talk about Asar.
Okay.
He got some on-ball reps, and JB's talked a lot about putting the ball in his hands more. I know a lot of Pistons fans have wanted to see that, since he first got in the league. And we know what Asar can do. Like, we know how athletic he is. We know how dangerous he could be with the ball. So, to put him in a position where he's actually, running some PNR and stuff like that, I'm just very curious to see how that goes over the course of the season. We've talked so much about how this team just needs that secondary ball handler, and I think that role kind of fell to J.I. a lot last season, just with the way that they staggered him and Cade. But again, like, they really want to get Asar some on-ball reps. So we saw that during the game Monday. We'll continue to see it throughout preseason and the regular season. I thought he had some nice moments. He had a nice transition play where, he kind of, ate the contact and then finished the right-handed floater. Not, it wasn't like the biggest sample size to go off of. So, I think, this time next week, going off of another preseason game or two, we'll have more data on that. But especially in transition, we know that that's a weapon for him. Half court, we'll see. But they're going to lean into that, and I thought he had some nice moments.
I love it, O2. I thought maybe this was going to be a time where you and I would really disagree a little bit, but your thoughts are very much in lockstep with mine in terms of Asar on the ball. One, this does kind of track with what we heard from Media Day in terms of Asar handling the playmaking more. And it wasn't like I felt like they strategically played him in lineups without Cade or JI on the court. You know what I mean? I think there was the start of the second quarter, and then obviously the second half as well, where Cade and I don't think JI played in the second half either, but there were lineups where it's like it's gonna be Asar is the primary initiator or point, whatever you want to call it. I just say primary initiator these days. But I'm with you that I think in transition it looks good. I thought the half court stuff was a little rough, to be honest with you. Now, it was my Asar notes that led me to write at the top of my Substack post, like, this isn't some definitive statement. It's just observations. But you said curious. I'm curious as well. I want them to lean into this, but it wasn't super positive in a first preseason game sample. Very small sample size. I didn't think he looked great operating the ball screens. And there was one time where Jalen Wells like really gave him fits, like picking him up and just Asar trying to get into the offense. So again, I think they should continue to do it. I think they should do it the whole preseason. I think they should do it into the regular season. And I think most likely Asar continues to look better and do better with it. But I am with you that in the open floor transition, it looked very good. I think there is some room for growth. And I have no doubt, based off what we've heard and what I've heard, that Asar was already breaking down the film immediately after the game in ways for him to be better. So I'm not sounding alarm bells. I'm not trying to be like, oh, this is a bad idea. It did leave a little bit to be desired in this single game sample, but I'm very excited to see what it looks like moving forward. I absolutely think they should continue to try to lean into it.
Yeah, with him, I think it's just the handle and confidence and comfort with the handle. I think as that comes along, we will see him come along with that, and I think that's just something that has to be ironed out, like with on-ball reps, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And on a team with this many ball handlers, like you don't need a SAR pounding the ball. It's just a handful of possessions here and there, and if he can do it, create space, get downhill, whatever it may be. That's pretty great, but it's definitely a reps thing with him. Again, I think you keep in mind how he missed all of last offseason and didn't make his debut until the end of November. Played himself into shape, so last season was, played under unideal circumstances. So this is something where I definitely want to see where he's at in like January and around the trade deadline, just from a comfort standpoint compared to now. Monday was like his first real kind of foray into that. So, you assume it's only going to go up from here.
And the other thing is we can't lose sight of all the other things he does for this team, right? The defensive impact, the rebounding, the cut, like everything else he's going to do as well. I want to make sure we don't lose sight of all of the positives he does while we kind of evaluate this very specific skill set with the on-ball usage in the half court. I have no doubt he's going to be good in the full court. Chuck says it perfectly. Learning live is much better than in practice versus known, so lean into forcing it for now. I agree 100%. And Devon says here, just want to say what's up. What's up, man? Thank you for always, supporting. You're consistent here in the chat and supporting the podcast. So we appreciate that. Let's go to JI next. What were your thoughts on, JI in this game? I don't know that we saw him play without Cade. Maybe. I don't remember. I don't have it specifically in my notes, but I don't remember. I don't remember a lineup where I made a note like, oh, J.I. is the primary initiator in this lineup. Maybe I missed it somewhere. I thought he was a little bit rusty on both ends of the floor. He hasn't played live competitive basketball in this way for a while. I will say that he pressured the paint and pressured the rim a lot to varying degrees of success. But what were your thoughts on J.I.?
Yeah, I mean, he just looked like a guy who was playing basketball for the first time since January 1st. I thought he had a nice bucket, especially right at the end of the second quarter to kind of beat the clock a little bit. But I'm looking now, like he played just under 14 minutes.
Yeah.
So he actually had one of the lowest minute totals outside of the two-way guys and Javonte Green and Bobby Clipman. He actually played a few fewer minutes or a few fewer seconds, really, like 30 seconds fewer than Tobias Harris. So I do
By
want
the
to
way,
see.
because we probably won't talk about him,
Yeah,
Tobias looked good, man.
and
I thought
Tobias looked
Tobias
great.
looked
Yeah,
real good. He had that first drive on Santi and just blew by him. He had
yeah,
another one. Like he made Santi Aldama look like a really bad defender, and maybe Santi's just a really bad defender. But I thought Tobias looked really good for a preseason game. Looked like he was in good shape and moving really well. So
yeah. It looked like he was just way stronger than whoever was, defending him on Memphis' side. Like he was just kind of going right through people. But yeah, Ji, like I just thought he was rusty. I do want to see if he gets like more minutes like after this first game. I kind of got the sense that he was just getting his feet wet. JB obviously wanted to get all 14 guys and the three-way guys in for the first preseason game. Well, I say all 14, but Duran was hurt, so really it was like 16 guys total. But yeah, like I wouldn't be surprised if against Milwaukee Thursday or sometime next week, like we see Ji with the ball a lot more, just so we could get those reps and work off some of that rust.
in Wesley 13 says the most important thing here is he looks healthy.
Yeah.
And I agree, and multiple people have said it in the chat as well. Rusty, I think we all agree. Like we're not gonna, it's hard to say that, he played great or, was in mid-season form, but he did look healthy. You could see the speed, all of that. So I want to talk a little bit more about, we can talk about this comment coming out of the break, but I want to talk a little bit more about this game before we get to the lineups, O2. So let's go to break. And then when we come back, if there's any individual players or a storyline that we want to get into, we'll kind of round up preseason game one and then get into the lineups, but we'll do that right after this.
All right, we're back with segment 2.
We can start with this.
Yes, Derek Brown, Detroit, Kansas City this week. Bryce, eye emoji, LOL. Just quick check. How are you feeling about the Chiefs? Just Lions lost Terrion Arnold, which
it doesn't matter.
Is,
it does. None of it never. The Detroit is better. Like here's
the
what
Chiefs though. I don't know. They're the Chiefs. I've had
Chiefs.
Mahomes in that Tom Brady category for so long.
Yeah,
Mahomes I don't care what the rest of it is.
It's not an indictment on Mahomes. Like the team just isn't. The only time I go against Bryce. Thanks, Chuck. Here's the thing. There's two paths to this game on Sunday, and this is all I'll say about it. Either the Lions are going to win 40-17 because Kansas City turns it over a bunch or, something like that, or the Lions are going to win 40-37. Like I think
you see no path to a Chiefs win.
I mean, there's a path, but I just think the Lions offense is so explosive that Kansas City's not going to slow it down. And like, I think the Lions defense is like, I don't know enough about it, but I know they have like some really good players, and like Aiden Hutchinson could wreck the game completely, even though Kansas City has a decent offensive line. Rashee Rice still isn't back yet. I just think there's a path to Kansas City being able to score and it just turns into a track meet, or Kansas City doesn't score or does a bunch of stupid stuff like they did on Monday, and it's a blowout. So, I mean, with Patrick Mahomes, like obviously there's a chance he gets the ball last and they win a close one. I'm expecting 2-4, everybody to bury them, and then we'll see if Kansas City can dig themselves out of it and kind of, do the thing the Patriots used to do. So, is Kansas City, Missouri? I live literally on the other side of the state, Devon. Then, like, I only go to Kansas City to watch one Chiefs game a year. Otherwise, I'm closer to Colorado. So, Ty Cobb's bat says Lions in a blowout for sure. But I'm not going to argue it. So, do you have any other thoughts on Lions Chiefs before?
I'm not trying to jinx the Lions, so we'll just see what happens. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, fair enough. Where do you want to go? Any other specific? Let's go to a couple things. Media day stuff. Stu shooting more threes. I thought that was definitely something that stood out in this game to me. O2. Stewart played, even played 18 minutes, got 2 3-pointers up. But I mean, even just in 18 minutes, 2 threes is like, I'll take that. Knocks one down. I thought they both looked fluid. Looks like this could be a real thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're going to let Stu like shoot threes. I think he's going to play some power forward. Last season, like in general, I think the coaching staff just came in and was like, we're going to have guys in specific roles, allow them to thrive within those specific roles. And now you're stepping outside those bounds a little bit, which is why you have Asar getting on ball reps at point guard. And like that goes with Stu too. He turned down a three, I think, early in the third quarter, and then he got a couple to fly. I think lineup wise, I could unlock a lot for the Pistons, especially if you're going to play Ron and Asar together. I don't think you could play Ron, Asar, and Duran. Maybe I'm wrong, but to me, like I just think you have to have beef stew with that group, and you have to have him like 5 out essentially. Like he had a nice game. He had a couple buckets in the paint to lead off the second quarter, and I think that was part of what led off that 7-0 run that kind of helped get the Pistons back in the game. Stu looked good. Definitely looking forward to seeing kind of what he looks like in this more hybrid role, because he only played 18 minutes per game last year too. And depending on what you're doing this season, like that could go up. If you're playing Milwaukee, maybe you need him starting against Giannis. Like I don't know exactly how to go about certain lineups, but like I think we'll see where Stu.
So that's what I wanted to lean into real fast. And, James says having Duran out made us look very small on the front line. And this is something we've talked about, especially the 4 position. I think we've done this on the podcast, but when you go through the NBA and kind of project starting lineups, I realize with Tobias, like you're probably okay. I shouldn't say probably, you are okay. But anytime Tobias is out, because I don't expect Tobias to play 82 games. If you meet any of Cleveland, the Knicks, the Bucks, the Hawks could play too big at time. Miami. Who were some other teams? There's some team, the West, the Thunder could play 2 bigs. The Rockets could play 2 bigs. The Nuggets have talked about playing 2 bigs. The Timberwolves do play 2 bigs. Memphis, like Dallas, obviously. My point is there's a bunch of teams in the NBA where whether it's a starting lineup or you just know they have a lineup where they're going to play pretty massive. If Tobias can do it, but if Tobias isn't there, I don't know if I love like Ron Holland having to guard, Karl Anthony Towns or Mitchell Robinson of the Knicks, or even with Asar, if Asar is guarding one of those 2 guys, guess who he's not guarding O2? Jalen Brunson. So I just, to your point, I still think there is potential where Stu may have to play the 4 in limited minutes. And I want to emphasize that. I still think the split should probably be like 85-15 center power forward. But I do think that there is 10, 15, max 20% of the minutes in the regular season where it could be useful against very specific matchups.
Yeah, it's just, like you said, it's just tough to see the Pistons being able to compete with some of these teams. Just how the roster's currently built, if Isaiah Stewart's not playing the 4. They have that trade exception. One thing I am wondering is if that ends up being not an Achilles heel. Like I don't think it'll be an Achilles heel, but just one of those recurring issues where going into the trade deadline, it's like, okay, we need to short this up a bit and see what we could get. But to your point, like I just don't see how the Pistons compete with Miles Turner and Giannis, unless Stu's playing a lot of minutes. I don't see how they match up with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. That's 8 games. I'm sorry, that's 8 games out of the season, right there. And then you've got, like you said, you've got Houston and all these other teams that could put big lineups on the floor. So, they're going to have to lean on Stu. I think point blank to be able to get through some of those matchups.
Yeah, so Ty Cobb's bat. Stu's shot is underrated, in my opinion. Definitely think him playing the 4 at times would be a big unlock for the team. Agree, Bryce. M. Wesley 13. If Stu is one of the 6 or 7 best players on the team, you got to find more ways to get on the floor, including time at the 4. So it's a really interesting point, as much as we talk about Stu. So I think there's a path. I feel like the pendulum really swung all the way to like exclusively a 5, not spacing the floor, all of that after the playing at the 4 experiment. I think we can swing it back just a little bit again in that to 10 to 20% range playing time at the 4. So we've essentially talked all the starters though too. We don't have to go through the whole bench. We have plenty of preseason games coming up that we can get into some of these guys. We talked a little bit about Dennis Jenkins, but Duncan Robinson, Paul Reed, Ron, Karras, Sasser. who's a guy, or maybe some quick thoughts on each of those guys, however you want to do it, before we move on to some of our lineup conversation.
Yeah, Duncan, he airballed his first three, and then I think he made his next two. What Duncan's gonna do. He's a shooter, but I thought he just kind of slid in there. He had three steals too. I thought he slid in and kind of found his comfort level, and they're gonna have to lean on him a lot too. Just because he's such an elite shooter. Beyond that, honestly, I don't know how many guys really stood out outside of Dennis Jenkins and Tolu. I thought Sass looked good too. I do have to give those guys a shout out. And Tolu and Dennis, they've looked good since summer league. So those are two guys who I think are going to be really good for the Crews this season.
Dennis and Tolu chemistry got me wanting to watch some more Crews games this year. I enjoyed those guys. Again, I'm real close to some crazy takes on what I think about Dennis Jenkins as an NBA player. I want to touch on Duncan real quick. I thought in this game he showed that he has the potential to impact a game in more ways than just knocking down threes. Mm-hmm. He got to a lot of loose balls. You mentioned the steals. He had 5 rebounds total. I feel like he does a nice thing. Now he has real limitations, right? We saw
he also played the most minutes, which is funny. He played a little bit more than Cade.
Yeah. He gave up a straight line drive to KCP. We know at the point of attack, he's a guy that will get attacked. But he also showed that he is able to do just enough off the bounce that when he gets hard closeouts, he can attack that into a mid-range jumper. He actually had a sick pass in this game. So I just thought that he showed he has that. I thought Karis LeVert did not look great. I thought he had a rough game. So we will see how that looks. I thought it was interesting that Sasser looked like they went the hockey line sub, and Sasser was in that second unit. It was Sasser, LeVert, Robinson, Holland, Stu. So maybe Sasser right now, in the 10-man rotation, if there is a 10-man rotation during a game. Let's just close it out here for now anyway. And again, guys, we're going to have more games and more stuff to talk about. What did you think about Ron Holland's game?
Yeah, I thought Ron looked good. He knocked down a really good looking three, a solid step behind the line.
Yep.
I thought he had a player or two in transition that looked good.
Chase down block.
Chase down block. He did have the chase down block, which I shot it out. That sequence was nice because he actually had the chase down block, and then on the other end he came down and pushed the pace, and then I believe he found Duncan in the corner, with just a really solid pass. And I don't think Duncan made the shot, but it just continues what we've seen from Ron, where he's trying to make the extra play. He's trying to be more of a playmaker. He's trying to knock down threes. He showed all that stuff, and it just also continued what we saw over the summer from him. I want to see how sustainable that shot is, because even just watching him in practice, it looks good. I had a prediction story last week, and I predicted he would make at least 34% of his threes, and I feel like making 1 out of every 3 attempts from 3 is a realistic outcome for him. So didn't really see a lot bad. It was to me pretty encouraging stuff from Ron.
Yeah, I agree. The chase down block was awesome. The transition finishing, we've seen the decision making going back to summer league. I will just call out again, I agree with all the positive. A couple things I'm watching for with also the shot. Even the misses I thought looked good. They were just short. He has to stop traveling on his attacks off the catch. He's been doing it back to last. He shuffles his feet, gets him going too fast, and he got called for a travel in this game as well. And sometimes guys can get a reputation for that. And even though the NBA doesn't call a lot of travels, we may all of a sudden see a lot of travels on Ron Holland specifically in this very specific situation. So I think that's something he really needs to work on. Also, he completely whiffed a rotation box out. Paul Reed came across to contest. The Pistons bigs like to come over and really contest. If you're a perimeter defender, you have to rotate and get weak side box outs. And that's going back to something even his pre-draft film that I highlighted. So I would really like to see him improve on that as well. Real quick, sorry, Ty Cobb asked this earlier. Did you thought Asar looked hesitant to shoot? I thought if anything, I wanted to see him just lean into that mid-range jumper. I know I continue to talk about this. I thought one time he turned that down. Like he got to like 8 feet and he tried to do this pivot work instead of just like dribbling into it, jumping higher than everybody else and shooting it.
Yeah, I don't know if he looked hesitant. I think he's just still working on his feel a little bit, figuring out like, which shots he should be going for. And I think he had a couple 3-point attempts, right? I know he had at least one. Yeah, he was 0 for 1 from 3, 5 shot attempts total. Like nothing to be like. I don't know if he looked hesitant. It's just I still think we're at the point where that's still a part of his game. He's like rounding out. I want to see if they're able to get him like more like clean catch and shoot looks. He talked about knocking down threes from the corner specifically. So that would be big. But like I don't know if he looked hesitant. I think once we get past preseason and we see him in more minutes, like I'll be able to have a firmer take on that. But like as far as his approach to shooting, I thought it was like still pretty similar as last season. I didn't see anything necessarily very different.
Okay, let's get into some of the lineup stuff.
Yeah.
Starting five. I know, we had Vinny Goodwill on, and he mentioned maybe, like a Duncan Robinson in the starting lineup or something like that. So I do want to talk through this stuff. My guess is you and I end up in the same spot with our actual prediction. So let's throw our prediction out and then let's talk about potential alternatives and why. But where are you right now on the Pistons starting five?
Yeah, I mean, what they wrote out last night, upset with Duran and Isaiah Stewart, but then you also have Cade, Ivy, Asar, and Tobias. I think that just checks the boxes you need for the most part. Maybe shooting is a little bit of a question mark. And I know Vinny mentioned Duncan starting, just because that unit may need that type of spacing. But to me, like that just feels like a pretty safe guess. The vast majority of those guys are going to start. Like you got to start AT. Like you need his defense on the other team's best perimeter player. Cade, obviously. Duran. So I'd be curious to see if you have any differing thoughts. But like to me, that's a pretty clear cut starting five.
I think that's what they're going to do. I think that's what I would do. I understand the shooting and floor spacing part of it. I truly do. It is a sneaky, scary aspect of this team's success for me right now that I'm getting more nervous about by the day, O2, because I continue to emphasize how important Duncan Robinson is for this team. And if he's not an elite shooter or somehow misses games, I'm a little nervous. But I think if you're Detroit, you have to figure out, Jaden Ivey. Like, is he that guy? Is the 40% real? We kind of went over it, but like he did knock down his catch and shoot 3 opportunity in this game as well. And it looked good. So if he can continue to do that, I don't think we're going to say he's Tim Hardaway Jr., but at a certain point, he's going to, if he's knocking down a high percentage of catch and shoot, that's kind of what you need whenever you also have Tobias on the floor. So that probably ends up being enough. Now, the other thing, like I would like to see him better defensively. So, but listen, you can't bring J.I. off the bench, in my opinion. Like you just can't. You were still in data collection specifically with him and finding out what he is. And so I think I would go with the starting lineup. I understand the Duncan Robinson aspect of it, but I just don't think that that's where they should go. I mean, the only other guy would be Stu, like we talked about earlier. I don't even know who that would be for. I mean, to me, Stu starts in games that Tobias doesn't play, and they're playing against a 2 big lineup. Would you agree?
That's kind of how I see it, for sure.
Yeah, so like Tobias isn't available, and they're playing the Knicks. Like all of a sudden we could see Stu. But I'm not starting Stu over Asar or Jaden. I don't have a guy that I'm going to put in the starting lineup over, obviously Cade and Duran are going to start. Asar's going to start. I'm not taking J.I. out of the starting lineup to start the year. Like this is what we need to see. And I'm like, Tobias looked good. So I don't see the guy that you're taking out of the starting lineup. 40 games from now, and we've seen it. And if J.I. is not shooting well or the defense hasn't improved or something like that, like, sure, I'll listen to it then. I can't in good faith talk myself into a different starting lineup, to be honest with you, O2.
Yeah, the only adjustment you said you probably can't bring J.I. off of the bench, which I agree with. I think you need that data collection. And like last season, you saw just him and Cade being staggered. So you could still run JI with the second unit. But if there were only one adjustment I could make, it would be potentially JI for Duncan, only because you might need that shooting. And you look at a team that lost two volume shooters and Tim Hardaway Jr. and Beasley. That's just a lot of threes that need to be replaced. And, you could still, get JI starters minutes and whatnot. But if there's anything that has to give, that's just the one area I'm curious about.
Yeah. All right. So let's go to break here. When we come back, I got about 15 minutes till I have to go be a teacher and do my real job. So we'll get into some other these lineup conversations. And guys in the chat, let us know. I mean, probably I'm assuming starting lineup wise, you guys are all on the same page. But let us know what you would do with these lineups as we go through them. Let's get into the 10-man rotation. So what I think, again, this will be a quick conversation, but just see what we're thinking there in terms of the backup five right after this.
All right, back with segment 3. We're going to list our 10-man rotation. We both were pretty set on the starting 5. So, Bryce, who would your next 5 players be to round us out?
Yeah, so I'll be honest. I'm a little bit more of a 9-man rotation. I'm interested to see if that's what JB leans into. And even in a 10-man, though, because that's what we're talking about here, I considered the idea of it actually being Karis LeVert, Duncan Robinson, Javonte Green, Ron Holland, and Isaiah Stewart. And again, you would have to really stagger things there, right? Like you could do that. Karis could be your primary ball handler. But I think if I had to put money on it, I would have to go with what we saw, and that's what we have one data point right now. And that data point says that the 10-man is Sasser, LeVert, Robinson, Holland, Stu. And so my guess is, now this is interesting. Harry brings up how far from the 10-man is Chaz. Clearly he ain't there yet, but eventually possible. That is interesting because I thought Chaz, he showed how quickly he can get his shot off. I thought he had a decent preseason debut.
Yeah. I think he went 3 of 6 from 3. I'm looking at it now. He went 3 of 5 from 3.
Yeah.
Which is what you want to see. And he's gotten some praise throughout camp as well. Obviously for his shooting and relocation and everything. I think Chaz just really would have to be a knockdown shooter to have a consistent role on this team. And if he's doing that, can hold up defensively, then maybe he can get a consistent role. But for him, it's just, can you knock down 36, 37 minimum from 3? If you're doing that, then yeah, maybe you could have a conversation. And JB's also said he just doesn't think guys develop unless they play. So even if Chaz is not in the rotation every game, I still think he'll get minutes here and there just to get him some run.
Yeah, Runa brings up Chaz also came in with the starters after the first platoon shift. So obviously giving him some opportunities. Let's go the all defensive lineup, O2. So, it's just we're out here trying to get a stop, one possession, whatever. What lineup are you putting on the court in that situation?
Yeah, if we're going all defense, you have a Sar and Stu out there, of course. I think you could go Cade, and if he's taking a rest, then maybe you could go Javonte Green. The other two guys, you could mix and match a little bit. Like you could go Ron, you could go Karis. I think the main thing is just having size, right? But in any defensive starting 5 is going to be built around Asar and Isaiah. And then from there, it's just, what do you want? Size? Do you want athleticism? I would go Ron in that group. I would go Cade in that group. And then the 5th person could just be whoever really. I mean, if you want to go Javonte Green, cool. If you think you absolutely need shooting, then you could slide Duncan in there and just hope him being 6'7", and the other 4 guys around him can kind of insulate him defensively. But it's going to be built around some combination of Asar and Stu, regardless of who those other 3 guys are.
Yeah, Chuck says Cade, Asar, Holland, Stu, Dern. I think a lot of answers are going to be similar here. I think you talked me into I agree with this, Chuck. Dern has to be there if we are going to be where we want to be. I agree with that. I just don't know that he's there yet. We'll see. Obviously, we didn't get a chance to watch him play dealing with a lingering hamstring thing. I think you talked me into Javonte Green and kind of the matching heights. So I don't know. I think I would go Cade, Asar, Holland, Green, and Stu. And then I'm very, very switchable and can do some things there. Ron would make me a little bit nervous depending on what the situation was. Like, do I need a turnover? Then I'm definitely have him on the floor. If I'm just trying to get a stop, I'm a little nervous with Ron. Just like, is he going to switch correctly? Is he going to be in the right spot? But I still think you have a chance to rebound the ball well there because Asar's such a good rebounder. Cade's such a good defensive rebounder. Ron can be a good rebounder. I considered Karras. I kind of like Karras's, potential on the defensive end. I broke that down on the video breakdown I did on the Substack. So Karras was definitely an option here. Trying to think if I can. Tobias, I even considered just because he can take some matchups and he's so good with his hands. I think in a one possession type situation, he still would be in consideration. The concerning thing here is like we haven't mentioned Jaden Ivey once. That is concerning whenever we're talking about a defensive situation. But I think that's probably where I would go if it was just like an isolated possession. Okay, let's flip it the other way now. O2. What if we're looking for the all floor spacing? Like this is we want to get all the shooting and floor spacing on the floor that we can. Where are you going with that?
Yeah, I mean, if you're prioritizing spacing above all else, then I'm going Marcus Sasser. I'm going Isaiah Stewart, Duncan. Definitely want to have those three guys on the floor. And then you can go Cade or J.I. in that other guard spot. And then probably Tobias would be my starting five. Or my 3.5.
Yep. That's it. This is my point. So I think Cade is definitely on the floor here, right? So I would go Cade. Duncan is obviously, I think the three automatics in this are Cade, Duncan, and Stu, right? Like, because Cade can shoot the three a little bit, but also you want to put the ball in his hands. Duncan is the best floor spacer on the team. And then Stu is the one big, like where you can still have a reasonable lineup on the court and space the floor. So then it comes down to Tobias Harris, Jaden Ivey, Sasser, Chaz Lanier, to be quite honest. So I think you probably have to go Harris at the 4. You don't have to, but I think I probably would. So then the conversation is Ivy, Sasser, Lanier. Who do you trust the most right now? So Chuck says Cade, Ivy, Duncan, Harris, Stu. Who do you trust the most right now? Cade drives and kicks to the wing to knock down a catch and shoot 3. Jaden Ivey, Chaz Lanier, or Marcus Sasser in that situation?
Honestly, like I would say Sass probably first because I think he's the best and most proven shooter, at least as far as the NBA. Out of those three, just because like Sass can really shoot the ball. He shot well as a rookie. He shot well last season. If there's one thing we know he could do, he could really shoot the ball. You can't really go wrong with any of those guys though. Like J.I. obviously shot 39% last season, and that was only through 30 games, but he can knock down threes. As Chuck Brewer says, he hit that game winner, a 4-point play against.
It's a great call, Chuck.
Sacramento last year. And then Chaz, obviously, that was his reputation coming out of Tennessee. So I think you can make an argument for any of those guys. But personally, I would go Sasser just because, I know he can really catch fire from 3. And I think he's one of the better shooters on this team.
I think I'd go Ivy, just because I wish I had Synergy pulled up right now. I don't. To look at the catch and shoot, just purely catch and shoot 3-point numbers for Sasser versus Ivy, because that's always been my thing with Sasser. Someone actually made a good comment earlier about Sasser playing off the ball, and that's always my thing with Sasser. I feel like a lot of his 3-point makes come like that little jab step 3 and, off the bounce and stuff like that, where I think Ivy is more off the ball. I will say this, like in general, if they're just in the gym shooting, I think Chaz Lanier is the best shooter of the 3, but he's played 5 summer league games and 1 preseason game. I think it'd be, crazy for me to put him in this lineup, even though I do think he's the best pure shooter. I suppose there could be an argument that you could go smaller and get like Ivy and Sasser on the court and play Duncan at the 4 and Stu at the 5 if you were really leaning into this. But I also just think, that Harris, I trust him enough, I guess, to be in this lineup. This one will be a fun one to end on. And I think this is one, if you're here in the chat first, thank you so much. Please get involved with this question. 5-man unit you are most curious to see? So what's a 5-man lineup, or we can talk through a couple of them that you would just be very excited or curious to see how they look?
Yeah, I think any combination that includes Ron and Asar, because they've talked about wanting to play them together more frequently. I think a lineup of those two, you put Cade out there, you put Stu out there, and then Duncan. To me, like that's a fun lineup. You've got an elite shooter. You've got your two best athletes on the team. You could do some 5-out spacing with Stu. Cade, obviously, I think that just checks a lot of boxes. And yeah, I mean, if you're playing Asar and Ron together, you got to have spacing around those guys, and I just think that could be a pretty potent lineup. It's a big lineup. It checks a lot of boxes. Potential to be fun. I like that one.
So there's a lot of Ron and Asar without
Yeah.
Jaden Ivey involved. So Zach Yoder says Cade, Ron, Asar, Tobias, and Duran. M. Wesley says Cade, Ron, Asar, Stu, and Duran. Chili says Cade, Ivy, Duncan, Asar, and Duran. So that would be the starting lineup without Tobias Harris. That is interesting, Chili. I assume we get a little bit of that. Aruna says Ronsar Chaos line. So Pistons Media Day got the Ron and Asar duo very excited, which it should be. I'm excited to see it as well, not just what they do defensively, but also offensively. So the one I immediately thought everybody would say is just the young core together. To me, it's Cade, Ivy, Ron, Asar, and Duran. I want to see those 5 guys on the floor together. I'm a little surprised. Does that interest you at all? Like there's real floor spacing questions with that group. But I don't think that you end up drafting 5 starters in consecutive drafts all in the lottery. I doubt that ends up happening, but I'm fascinated to see if that lineup can play together and what it would look like.
It's worth a shot. Cade, Ivy, Asar, Ron, Duran. I mean, you've got a lot of athleticism. You've got playmaking. You've got rebounding. Again, the main question there is spacing, which is why I had Duncan out there, because I just think because you could also go I also could get behind Cade, Ivy. Well, okay. So the issue, right, is that if you need shooting, then it's hard to make any type of lineup like that without Duncan. And then if you're putting Duncan in there, then who comes out? Which is why. I think J.I. got pushed. But yeah, if you're putting J.I. in there, then you've got elite speed. I mean, I think that group pretty much speaks for itself. And you're probably leaning less on shooting and more on forcing turnovers and getting up and down the floor and just creating havoc. So there's no one answer here. I definitely think that would be a really fun lineup to watch. But again, I think a lot of these lineup combinations are going to revolve around Asar and Ron in some capacity.
We have a Cade, Ivy, Asar, Tobias, and Stu, 2 great defenders and only 1 non-shooter. I like that. That's a lot of them. It's, you kind of take the starting lineup and then just, piece together something a little bit different. I think we'll see a lot of these. I don't know if we'll see the one I brought up, but I just was the one that I would be most interested or excited to see. That was the first one that came to mind for me. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I think any lineup where Asar is the primary ball handler. I know I kind of critiqued that earlier, but I think Asar with as much floor spacing around him as possible lineup, whatever that lineup is. So as much as we want to see Asar with Ron, if Ron isn't a real floor spacer yet, I don't hate the idea of Asar with Duncan, J.I. playing off the ball, Stu, and whatever gets you to the most floor spacing that you can in that lineup. And then I will make my last Dennis Jenkins. Give me a lineup with Dennis Jenkins in. O2, I love that dude. I think he's so good, man. Every time I watch him, I'm just he hoops. He's a really good basketball player, and he plays on both ends of the floor. I just give me some Dennis Jenkins minutes to start the season, O2.
And he plays with a lot of spirit and heart.
Yes.
So,
and he talks so much trash, which was awesome at Summer League.
Yeah, no, he's definitely got an edge to his play style, and this is a team that could use some additional ball handling. So One thing JB said yesterday is that he feels like he could put all of his two-way guys in, and like they could play. He'll feel pretty good about it. So, Dennis, I think Tolu as well. They've made the most of their opportunities so far, and would be fun to see what they look like on a real NBA floor.
100%. Guys, real game basketball to talk about is back. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. Make sure you're reading all of O2's work. Make sure you're subscribed to the Motor City Hoops Substack. Again, that's completely free content over there that I'll be bringing you all season long. I'll have, at the very least, I'll have game notes after every single preseason, regular season, and playoff game. And then I will do video breakdowns whenever I get a chance to do so. Make sure you're back with us next week for our 200th episode of the Pistons Pulse. If you have it in you, send me a DM. Let me know your favorite memory or something you appreciate about the Pistons Pulse, something about us, the quirks or whatever, your story about the podcast that we can share for our 200th episode. I think that'd be a lot of fun to get your guys' perspective on the podcast and let us reminisce about it just a little bit. So thank you always for your support. If you were with us this morning live, if you're listening after the fact, thank you as well. Go Pistons, go Lions, go Tigers, and O2, take it away, my guy.
All right. Big thanks to our audio producer, Robin Chan, our editor-in-chief, Nicole Avery Nichols, our executive producer, Bill Bradley, and a big shout out to Wes Davenport, as always, and we'll talk to you all next week.